Now, speaking of collapse, U.S. President Barack Obama just signed into law the Fair Sentencing Act, which drops the simple possession mandatory minimum and limits penalties served by people convicted of low-level crack cocaine offenses. The sentencing project estimates 66% of powder crack cocaine users are white, while 82% of those convicted under federal crack cocaine laws are African American. Joining us for a panel discussion on this latest development and how it impacts the U.S. war on drugs is Aaron Houston. He's the executive director of students for sensible drug policy, and radio host TJ McCormick in our New York studio. Gentlemen, great to have you on. Now, I just want to tell our viewers a bit about this sentencing disparity, which is why they put this law into place. Now, if you're caught with 5 grams of powder crack cocaine, which, as I mentioned in the intro, is synonymous with white users, you don't get that 5 minimum penalty. Whereas if you have that's for crack, which is usually found with African American, whereas 500 grams is usually for white users. Now, why was that sentencing there in place to begin with, and was it there mainly to have more white users face less time, where black users were, being sentenced with harsher penalties? Aaron, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't think the intent of the law was, in fact, to be racist or to...
Fair sentencing law came into place. I just want to ask TJ about this because, as we keep talking about the statistics here, who was benefiting from this law? I mean, do more of the elites, executives, even government officials, for that matter, use powder crack cocaine over crack? I mean, is that a reason why we had this in place to begin with?
Well, I think that's sort of the general
his views on this new law.
Well, first of all, the point is black people aren't selling crack and white people aren't selling cocaine. The point of this is...
Yeah, TJ, he did make a point that this was a bipartisan bill and it was supported on both sides. So what do you make of that, for instance, that maybe it wasn't a political
Well, look, I mean, you have a lot of Republicans that are absolutely, again, just to bring in...
What brought about this U.S. war on drugs back during the Nixon administration, and how does this, the crack cocaine sentencing that was in place before the Fair Sentencing Law, how did that come into play with the prison corporations and also, with the statistics between the black, the whites, and the Latinos in prison?
Sure. Well, it actually goes back to the beginning of the 20th century, the end of the 19th century, where the Harris
president to pass this kind of law. Do you think it's going to help the racial disparities in our prison system? Great to have both of you.